Hello and welcome to Mortal Night Gaming. We are wanting to do a quick video over some Dino change outlines that are coming, and honestly, Dino's just not getting talked about a lot right now, so I kind of wanted to touch on base with him. Dino has not been getting a lot of love, and it looks like we're going to be suffering another nerf. I'm always primarily a PT player, but my second favorite has always been Dino. It's just fun to go and ambush people, and it's awesome to become the biggest, baddest croc in the world. However, I decided to kind of put together a little bit of a list. A little bit of a list of some changes that have been talked about sparsely on Dino. Part one here is going to be growth and balance changes that are coming. Dino and Stegio both are going to be affected by some growth behavior changes. Dino's spawns are going to be smaller. It's going to take a little bit longer to grow and scale slower over time. This is intended to balance their power and lifetime significance in game. This has been spoke about by Dondi via dev streams and community recaps, and it's just kind of a summary of it. Um, I don't think that I feel like it takes a long time for Dino to grow now. 8 hours is a huge amount of time, and to scale slower over time, I don't like the idea of the size being so affected. I shouldn't have to just stay at the bottom of a lake out of the danger of everything being able to eat me for 4 hours instead of two, you know? Dino might get abilities to drag larger creatures into the water, however, and this could be a huge boost to Dino players, how they handle their combat, how they handle predation. Being able to drag a creature that's bigger than you into the water, it can add a whole nother level of gameplay to it, especially if you can hang on to them and just keep them underwater to drown them. All of a sudden, you could have a fully stamina'd up, half grown Dino pulling a full grown Stego down to the depths, or at least a full grown Dibble. And just being able to catch that leg and pull them under, that sounds like that's going to be a good change. There's some positive changes coming too. I don't want to just highlight negative or be one of those negative game players here, but growth systems are being adjusted globally, which means food requirements, stamina, nutrient dynamics impact Dino progression too. Now, the growth systems are being overhauled, but from what I've seen, I feel like it's definitely going to be better overall. For instance, the diet and hunger systems are going to be expanded, which affects how Dino feeds and survives long term. These come from developer stream summaries on community discussions summarizing Dondi and the team's remarks. So kind of make sure you kind of have to hit all fronts with this dev team, which I like. They're always very public facing. And then we have here new AI creatures are going to spawn small prey and ecosystem fill-in. So those changes will be able to help. Being a 6%er and be able to grab like a little rat off of the shoreline. A little rat off the shoreline is definitely going to be beneficial to the longevity of new spawns, especially if we're going to be spawning in smaller. Dragonflies, grasshoppers will be added to give you young dinosaurs more consistent food sources. This changes early gameplay for Dino and addresses issues where fish were scarce. I think they just need to up the spawn rate of fish. I think fish need to spawn differently than they do. I think that a school of fish should travel across a lake, and one school should be able to spawn another school of fish. That's how I feel they should handle it. I'm not a dev, but that's the way I would prefer to see fish work in this, where they actually move through the system, make it a large school that breaks off into smaller pods, and those smaller pods stay behind to feed on dragonflies or whatever. That'd be pretty cool to see. I think there's definitely going to be a lot of changes there. It's just whenever you're playing Dino, I feel like he's kind of been left behind. He doesn't do as much damage as he does in Spyro. In fact, thinking about it, Spyro, it just had that fully connected water system. So even though you might have, say, 20 Dinos playing at a time, you really only had 4 or 5 that were super dangerous. The rest were just starving and trying to get food and staying out of the big guy's territory. Because that's really how it worked, is the big guys would take a territory, and once you got to about that 100% mark, You just kind of respected each other and backed off. And you figured out where those borders were. And occasionally somebody would want to cross into your territory because all the dinosaurs are crossing there. So they'd come in and challenge you and expand their territory. You would expand yours. It was a really fun gameplay. So let's talk about a few mechanics that are going to be affecting that in the ecosystem. Seasonal AI improvements. AI behavior overall is improving, which influences how prey animals behave around rivers and swamps. I'm happy about that. They're supposed to be coming to the side of the lake to drink, which is going to attract more dinosaurs who feed on them, which is going to give dino players much more food. So the ecosystem and world is becoming more dino friendly. That's a positive. Migration zones and sanctuary zones, they're going to be changing. New map zones like River Delta may reshape where Dino lives and hunts. We already have River Delta as it is, but every time it seems like the Hortez build goes and does any environmental changes, the River Delta gets shifted a little. It gets a little more flooded, a little less. I'm curious about this whole idea of whenever it rains, the river coming up and rising and bringing in floods and bringing dinos to connect into different areas. That's kind of what I'm looking forward to whenever it comes to that stuff. Mechanics that are going to be affecting some dino gameplay. Let's talk about that. Some diet and growth. Redefine diet systems and nutritional math affecting how dinos feed and grow. More strategy in choosing prey and water-based nutrients. So we always had this system of diet where it tells you what to eat, and your diet depends on how well your growth system works there. They've talked about, since the elder system's in play, putting more things on diet in the past a little bit. I don't understand why Dino doesn't have pig, deer, and rabbit and chicken on their diet. They kind of are, in any kind of sense of gator or crocodile, they're just kind of trash compactors that eat anything, and they grow well from any kind of meat. So I'm not sure why we have a limited diet to begin with. I think if any dinosaur on the isle should have a full diet of anything that spawns you can eat, I think it should be gator. I think it should just change by the size. Like, I shouldn't have a rat on my diet as a full-grown gator. You know, that doesn't make any sense. But as a hatchling, a rat makes sense. You're tiny. You're probably going to be as big as a freaking prehistoric rat. Some AI improvements to the way prey are distributed over the isle, rivers and swamps are going to definitely help for dino success. Sitting here on the water bank just kind of waiting for players has always been a little bit annoying, because especially if you're in a low pop or even a half full server of 100, if you're around 50 players, trying to find a spot where players actually are and not mix packing is very difficult on any official server. They have talked about addressing that a little bit. But some movement in combat. Dondi and the devs have experimented with a new movement tweaks for Dino. Swimming, handling, lunging mechanics, although these are still a work in progress, they do look pretty promising. In the Horde test, I feel like he's a lot more nimble than he has been. Whenever you're talking about the movement of the Dino, he seems to do a lot better than he used to. Especially with, like, being able to swim around rocks when small, being able to go down into the depths and hide himself into corners quickly, doing like little spin maneuvers. He definitely is doing good there. So let's talk about a little bit of long-term and future stuff. New dinosaurs like the T-Rex, Triceratop, and eventually the Spinosaurus is going to be semi-aquatic. Now, T-Rex in particular, as of right now, if you're crossing into a river system and you're a full-grown T-Rex, most of the time you will find a crossing where you're not actually off the ground, and a full-grown dino can attack you, but your bite as a T-Rex is about or more powerful than theirs, and typically if they're not an experienced player, you can probably nail them if you are. T-Rex is perfect in my opinion for the balance of power right now. I think T-Rex should be that, like, basically almost anything he hits, he kills, and if he doesn't kill you, I think he should break a bone. I think I'm fully for that. I'm not even a T-Rex player. It just adds a level of fear to the game that's been missing. But Spinosaurus here, being a big semi-aquatic species who's going to have a grab ability, I imagine that that's really going to be the Deinosuchus killer. He's going to be able to hold and pin the dino underwater while he nails down those bites, and you can't do anything about it. I also don't think that's a bad idea, because it's going to force us dino players to get off the bottom of the river and really figure out what we're doing. But it's also going to create a little bit of a waterways war, and I cannot wait for that to actually begin, because it's going to be great. Now, what's going to be really interesting are the camera updates that are coming. We spoke about this on stream not too long ago. We'll probably put up that as a video of my opinion. I support cameras that are closer to the dinosaur because I like a more realistic experience. For Dino, it's going to be worse, in my opinion, than for other creatures because you're underwater. And a lot of times you want that aerial view so you can see how well your camouflage is blending in, how muddy the river really is, how well you really can be seen. And if you're always at head level like that, it's going to be very difficult to figure out whether or not the enemy can see you, aside from just people being, themselves. But so that's going to change things up quite a bit. I mean, as of now, you have to run from a T-Rex if you see it in the water and you're a dino. A few controversies that have been coming from the Isle lately that are definitely going to affect dinos. Water II spawns, for instance, with players claiming water life affecting dino food availability. Shallows changes and river reworks have made drinking spots more abundant for herbivores, altering dino interaction with the map. Some changes to night vision I've really, really hated myself. I think it's too dark. I think it's too difficult to see. There should be, if you're not going to go for a fully realistic game, then why the hell aren't you giving me the ability to see at least a little bit at night? Why is it always just solid black? As we can see on screen, underwater, it's almost impossible to see anything. But so the shallower area reworks have really kind of been a detriment in a lot of cases. It's great for small crocs, but you can be seen, so what's the point in having them to begin with? There's nothing that really spawns there, and everything that drinks in those shallow areas is just safe. Running around as a herbivore right now is just way easier than running around as a dino. Just plain and simple. I know that the community had a big outcry a few years ago before this new horde test dropped, and even the new version of Irma dropped, and they decided to really nerf the dino. He used to be a super feared creature. Now most of the time you see most people getting away from him. And that's just fine. That's okay. I understand that they're terrified of him. But that's how it should be. This is supposed to be a dinosaur survival horror game. And a dinosaur survival horror game means some jump scares. Dino has provided my stream some of the best jump scares in the history of my channel. And he will continue to, because the changes that are coming, Dino players really have a habit of just overcoming whatever's thrown at them. They're probably some of the most resilient, constant players in the Isle, and I love to pop into some of their streams every now and then just to see how determined they are to stay at a location they have a good feeling about. And then suddenly a family of baby triceratops will come through and they will just start picking off babies. They are resilient players, and I give them that. So just kind of to give a little bit of a summary here, we got some growth and scaling changes coming with a smaller spawn AIs and a slower growth. I think that's a big negative, but it does give you a potential for new abilities like dragging larger dinosaurs in to kind of make up for that growth cycle. And I think that's going to be worth its weight in gold just to see your dinosaur pulling a larger dinosaur in. With the more complex nutrient systems coming in for feeding, I'm hoping that means that they're going to be adding more variety on our diet that currently exists. Like adding deer and boar makes no sense. At the very minimum, deer and boar, it makes absolutely no sense why the two creatures that stay closest to the water and would absolutely be meals for today's gators and crocs don't become a great diet source for dinos. The adjustment of the stamina, hunger, and combat and balance patches that have been coming out they're okay. I don't think that we should be losing bite force and size as a dino. I think the dino should continue to be the largest creature on the Isle. Ton-wise, I don't understand why you would bring that down. It's kind of what entices people to want to learn to play. And Deino is a skill-based dinosaur. He is not a dinosaur that a new guy can jump onto the game with and just dominate the river delta. You're going to run into a lot of competition. You're going to run into a lot of experienced players. And if you don't have the experience to back up your gameplay, you are going to lose your territory. It's the only dinosaur, in my opinion, that truly is the territory base of the game. Yes, you can access most waterways, and if you're good at going over land, you can access all waterways. But since Spyro, there has not been an interconnected waterway system. Some things I've heard talked about are things that are coming up with like giving rain dynamic flooding so that it does connect waterways. There's a way to traverse the island without having, once the rain comes and then once it leaves, it all drains off. I think that would be realistic just judging by how the isle is made. I feel like it's very manufactured by man, but in a way to like the rocks are positioned to keep the waterways the way they are. The land masses are positioned to, keep the river delta partially flooded delta. I believe that having that change would be the only change that we really even need to worry about. As a Deino, we can take all the other bullshit they throw at us, but giving us the ability to enter a flooded plain and then end up in a completely different river system could just really change the entire dynamic of it. So I'm hoping that new AI creatures as prey, it's gonna be interesting to be a hatchling and jumping and getting trying to get dragonflies out of the sky. I think that's going to be more like a pterodon thing, which as a pterodon main, I'm pretty excited for. I will say that. The adjustments to stamina, hunger, and combat and balance patches, I'm curious to see how it really all fleshes out by the time the horde test comes out, because I feel like it's not stamina wise. I think that they're going the right direction with giving everybody a boost to stamina. Stamina regeneration is not like a chore. It feels like in horde tests that whenever you run out of stamina, you're not sitting around for half an hour. It's more like 5 minutes. I enjoy that aspect of it. Balance and combat mechanics, update to Deino combat behaviors, lunging and water interactions. We're talking dragon bearer creatures in. We're talking giving a little bit more lunge and thrust. I'm hoping that we get the old super lunge attack back where you would get up your speed at the bottom of the lake in Spyro, and as long as you had that a good angle, you came out of the water and lunged at the same time, you could just about end up like your entire body length on shore, and then you're dragging your opponent back and underwater. I'm hoping something like that comes back, and I know some people have got the timing down to where they still can hit it, but it hasn't been really a generally accessible feature for a long time. Future game content that's going to be affecting us is definitely going to be Spyro coming in and Rex coming in and seeing how Spyro begins to dominate the waterways, because they're going to have a grab and pin attempt. Deino, however, I don't think us Deino players are going to be backing down too hard, because Deino has got the size. He's going to be bigger than Spino ultimately, and seeing a Deino and a Spino battle it out in the riverway is just going to be fun to see for everybody. So I am looking forward to that. The Elder system, it's an interesting system, trying to keep a perfect diet and visit sanctuaries and all that's kind of ridiculous. I think that it just needs to be based on diet, how well you eat. I think that you should have to nest at least once before you actually unlock Elder. If you don't reach that nesting by a certain age, you shouldn't unlock Elder. I think that should be the only two things for Elder in my opinion. And thanks for popping in. I guess that's pretty much all I needed to say. I just want to make a quick video because I see a lot of things about the coming changes to Rex and Allosaurus and Spinosaurus coming and Baryonyx. I don't see a lot of people paying much attention to how these changes are affecting Deino. So this is just my take on it. Leave in the comments down below what you think. Challenge my ideas. Prove me wrong. I dare you. give me a holler. Thank you for coming by. Like, follow, subscribe if you want to see more Isle videos. And if you don't, then I get it. I understand. Have a great day. This has been The Mortal Knight. Thank you for popping by Mortal Knight Gaming, and thanks for clicking on this video. So have a terrific day. Be safe and be well. Be humble, my friends.